The story of San Antonio's ghost children is a haunting local legend that has intrigued residents for decades. It centers around the idea of ghostly children who wander the streets, particularly around certain parks and neighborhoods. One of the most famous locations tied to this legend is the old railroad tracks near the town of San Juan, where it's said that the spirits of children who died in a tragic accident linger. Locals often report hearing laughter or seeing apparitions of children playing, especially at dusk. These tales have evolved over time, with some stories suggesting that the children are seeking help or trying to communicate with the living. Many who claim to have encountered the ghost children describe feelings of sadness mixed with an overwhelming sense of nostalgia. While there is no definitive proof of these ghostly encounters, they continue to be a popular topic for ghost tours, local folklore, and paranormal investigations in San Antonio. The legend reflects a mix of local history, cultural beliefs, and the universal themes of loss and remembrance. As night fell over San Antonio, the air thickened with an eerie stillness, amplifying the whispers of the past. A group of curious teens, eager for adventure and tales of the supernatural, decided to venture out to the infamous railroad tracks where the ghost children were said to roam. Armed with flashlights and a spirit of daring, they set off, laughter echoing through the empty streets. As they approached the tracks, the atmosphere shifted. The sounds of the city faded into an unsettling silence, broken only by the crunch of gravel beneath their feet. The teens exchanged nervous glances, half expecting the playful spirits to appear. Suddenly, one of the boys, Jake, claimed he saw a flicker of movement out of the corner of his eye. He turned, heart racing, but only the shadows danced in response. "Did you see that?" he whispered, trying to steady his voice. The others shrugged it off, though the air felt charged with anticipation. They continued down the tracks, the beam of their flashlights cutting through the darkness. As they neared a particularly dilapidated bridge, they heard a distant sound, like the giggle of children at play. It sent a chill down their spines. "It's just the wind," someone muttered. But they all knew it felt too intentional, too alive. Emboldened by their curiosity, they pressed on, their footsteps quickening. Just then, a faint glow appeared at the edge of the tracks, illuminating a figure that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. The teens froze, eyes wide. As the figure began to take shape, a small child, translucent and glowing, with an expression that was both joyful and haunting. The child turned to face them, and in that moment the world around them seemed to shift. The laughter grew louder, now surrounding them, filling the air with an almost palpable energy. The child beckoned, a small hand raised, inviting them closer. But as they stepped forward, the laughter abruptly stopped, replaced by an overwhelming silence. It was then that they noticed more figures emerging from the shadows, other children, all with similar ethereal qualities. Each seemed to be lost in their own world, unaware of the living teens before them. The group exchanged terrified glances, unsure whether to retreat or to stay and learn more about these spectral beings. Just as fear threatened to take hold, Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward, driven by an inexplicable urge to connect. "What do you want?" he called out, his voice echoing in the stillness. The children paused, their expressions shifting, and one of them, a girl with bright, luminous eyes, stepped forward. In that moment, the air grew heavy with anticipation, as if the answer to their question lay just beyond reach. The ghostly figures looked at Jake, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to stand still, suspended between two worlds. "Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story." The girl's eyes sparkled with a mixture of mischief and melancholy, and for a moment, Jake felt an unexplainable connection. "Help us," she whispered, her voice like a breeze, barely above a whisper. The other children echoed her sentiment, their voices blending into a soft chorus that danced on the edge of comprehension. "Help you with what?" Jake asked, stepping closer, his heart pounding in his chest. The other teens hovered behind him, fear and curiosity battling for dominance. The girl pointed down the tracks, towards the old, rusted remnants of a train that had long since stopped running. "We want to play," she said, her tone suddenly brightening, as if the very act of expressing a desire filled her with joy. "But we can't." Jake felt a wave of sadness wash over him. "Why can't you?" he asked, the question slipping out before he could think it through. The girl's expression dimmed, and the laughter of the other children faded to a distant echo. "We're stuck," she replied, her voice trembling now. "We can't leave this place. Not until someone remembers us." The group exchanged glances, the weight of her words settling in. It was more than just a ghost story. These children were trapped in a moment, suspended between life and death, yearning for connection and acknowledgement. One of the other teens, Emily, finally found her voice. "What happened to you?" she asked, her curiosity overpowering her fear. The children's faces lit up at her question, and for a fleeting moment, the joy returned. "Long ago, we were playing by the tracks," the girl explained. "A train came too fast, and we didn't make it." She looked down, the weight of her past pressing heavily on her small shoulders. "We just wanted to keep playing." Feeling an inexplicable urge to help, Jake stepped forward. "What can we do?" he asked, desperation threading through his words. "How can we help you be free?" The girl's eyes glimmered with hope. "Remember us," she said, her voice gaining strength. "Tell our story. Let others know we were here, that we existed." The teens nodded, realizing the gravity of what they were being asked to do. It was more than just a story. It was a promise to honor lives lost too soon. As they stood together, the air around them began to shift once more, a palpable energy swirling as if the very fabric of reality was responding to their intention. But before they could fully grasp the magnitude of their decision, the ground beneath them trembled slightly, and the ghostly figures began to flicker, as if caught between worlds. The laughter that had filled the air turned into a distant melody, growing softer as the children began to fade. "Remember us," the girl called out, her voice growing faint. "Promise." With one final look, the last flicker of their forms disappeared, leaving the teens in a profound silence, the weight of their task settling heavily in the air. They stood there, hearts racing, minds racing. What now? How could they honor the memories of those lost children? As they turned to leave the tracks, the first rays of dawn began to break on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. But the promise they made lingered, a whispered vow echoing in the quiet of the early morning, binding them to a mission that would change their lives forever. They knew their adventure was only just beginning, and the ghosts of San Antonio were waiting for their story to be told. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, the teens found themselves still standing on the tracks, the chill of the night slowly dissipating, but the weight of their experience pressing heavily on their hearts. Jake felt a mix of exhilaration and fear, exhilaration from the adventure they just had, and fear of the responsibility they now bore. "What do we do now?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to break the spell that had been cast over them. "We need to find out more about what happened," Jake replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "We can't just forget them." The group agreed, their resolve strengthening. They decided to start by researching the history of the area, focusing on any old news articles or records that might shed light on the tragic event the ghost children had described. They made a pact to meet later that day at the local library, a place rich with stories waiting to be uncovered. As they parted ways, Jake felt a strange pull to return to the tracks one last time. He wanted to feel the connection again, to hold on to the promise they had made. When he arrived, the sun had fully risen, illuminating the area with a warm glow. The world felt different, as if the morning light had brought with it a sense of hope. He stood there for a moment, contemplating how to honor the children. "I remember you," he whispered into the quiet, feeling foolish but determined. "I promise to tell your story." Suddenly, a soft breeze rustled through the trees nearby, carrying with it a faint echo of laughter. Jake looked around, heart pounding. Was it just his imagination, or were they still there, listening? With renewed purpose, he turned back toward the path leading to the library. As he walked, he began to think of ways to keep the memory of the children alive. Perhaps they could organize a small memorial at the site, inviting others to share their stories and honor those who had been lost. When he arrived at the library, Emily and the others were already there, their heads buried in books and old newspapers. "You won't believe what I found," Emily exclaimed, holding up a faded newspaper clipping. It read, "Tragic accident claims lives of local children." The group huddled around her, eyes wide as they read the article detailing the accident from decades ago. It mentioned the names of the children, names that would soon become part of their shared mission. As they dug deeper, they uncovered more details. The circumstances of the accident, the community's grief, and the way time had seemingly washed away the memory of those young lives. The more they discovered, the more determined they became. They decided to create a project that would not only honor the ghost children but also educate others about the importance of safety near railroad tracks. They brainstormed ideas for a memorial, a website, and even a small community event to share their findings. As the weeks passed, the teens found themselves drawn deeper into the lives of the children they had met that night. Each piece of history uncovered felt like a thread woven into the fabric of their own lives. They began to feel a connection to the children, as if they were carrying their spirits with them. Then one evening, as they gathered at Jake's house to plan the next steps, something unexpected happened. The lights flickered, and the room grew unusually cold. The teens exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what was happening. Suddenly, a soft sound echoed through the room, a faint laughter, almost musical, filling the air. The sound brought with it a sense of warmth and familiarity. They froze, realizing they had somehow invoked the presence of the ghost children once more. "Are you here?" Jake called out, his voice steady despite the chill. The laughter faded momentarily, replaced by a gentle breeze that swept through the room, ruffling papers and sending shivers down their spines. In that moment, they understood that the connection they had forged was not just a fleeting encounter, it was a bond that transcended time and space. And as they sat in the dim light, surrounded by whispers of the past, they knew that their journey was far from over. The laughter faded into silence, but the air was still charged with an energy that felt almost tangible. The teens exchanged glances, their hearts racing as they processed the uncanny experience. Jake felt a warmth spread through him, as if the presence of the ghost children was affirming their mission. "What do you think they want?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes darting around the room as if expecting to see the children materialize before them. "I think they want us to keep going," Jake replied, feeling a surge of determination. "They want their story told, and maybe even more than that, they want to be remembered." Just then, a soft rustling sound drew their attention to a piece of paper that had been swept onto the floor. It was one of the old newspaper clippings they had been studying. The headline read, "Community Rallies to Remember Lost Children." "Look," Emily pointed. The paper seemed to shimmer slightly in the dim light. "It's like it's urging us to do something." With newfound urgency, the group huddled closer together, brainstorming ideas. They discussed creating a memorial event that would not only honor the children but also educate the community about safety around train tracks. They envisioned a day filled with stories, art, and remembrance, something that would draw attention to the past, while instilling a sense of responsibility in the present. As they continued to brainstorm, Jake felt an idea taking shape in his mind. "What if we could invite people to share their own stories of loss and remembrance?" he suggested. "It could create a space for healing for both the community and for the children's spirits." The others nodded, excited by the idea. They began mapping out plans. A community gathering, perhaps at the park near the tracks, complete with activities for families, storytelling sessions, and a memorial where people could leave notes and flowers for the children. As they delved deeper into planning, they found themselves increasingly immersed in the lives of the ghost children. They learned more about their hobbies, dreams, and the things they loved to do while alive. With each detail they uncovered, they felt a sense of responsibility growing within them, a duty to honor those lives cut short. In the following weeks, they worked tirelessly, reaching out to local organizations and gathering support. Word spread about their project, and the community began to take notice. Parents shared stories of their own children, creating a tapestry of shared grief and resilience. The closer they got to the date of the event, the more palpable the anticipation became. One evening, as they met to finalize preparations, the atmosphere shifted again. The lights flickered, and the air grew cool. This time, there was no laughter, only a serene stillness that enveloped them. "Do you feel that?" Emily asked, her voice trembling slightly. The others nodded, sensing the shift in energy. "Maybe they're here with us," Jake said, his heart racing. "Maybe they're proud of what we're doing." In that moment, the atmosphere seemed to swell with emotion both heavy and light, a mix of sorrow and joy. The teens closed their eyes, allowing themselves to be enveloped by the presence that surrounded them. They felt an overwhelming urge to express their gratitude. "Thank you," Jake said softly, his voice steady. "We promise to remember you." As the words left his lips, a sudden gust of wind rushed through the room, scattering papers and lifting their spirits. They could almost hear the ghostly children cheering, a joyous sound mingling with the wind. It was a sign that they were on the right path. The day of the event finally arrived, bright and sunny, casting a warm glow over the park. Families gathered, drawn by the stories that had spread through the community. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, and tables were set up with art supplies, encouraging children to express themselves through drawing and painting. Jake and his friends stood at the center, nervous but exhilarated as they prepared to share their journey. As they spoke, they noticed families starting to gather around, drawn in by the energy of the moment. The laughter of children mixed with the whispers of the past, creating a beautiful tapestry of remembrance. With each story shared, Jake felt the weight of the children's presence alongside him, as if they were celebrating the event just as much as everyone else. He glanced at Emily, who was listening intently to a mother sharing her own experiences with loss. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden hues over the park, the time came to unveil the memorial, a beautifully crafted wooden structure adorned with flowers and notes left by community members. It stood as a testament to the lives of the ghost children and a reminder of the fragility of life. Jake stepped forward, heart pounding, ready to deliver a few closing words. "Today, we not only remember the lives of those who were lost, but we also honor their spirit by ensuring their story lives on. Let's promise to look out for one another and to remember that even in loss, there is a chance for connection and healing." As he spoke, a gentle breeze picked up, and the air shimmered around them. In that moment, it felt as though the ghost children were right there, enveloping everyone in warmth and love. And as the final rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, the laughter of children echoed in the air once more, weaving through the hearts of all those gathered, reminding them that while some stories may end, others are just beginning. As Jake finished his speech, a hush fell over the crowd. He felt a wave of emotion wash over him, as if the spirits of the ghost children were smiling down on them. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden light that wrapped around the park, creating a magical ambience. One by one, families began to step forward to place flowers, drawings, and handwritten notes at the memorial. Each offering was a poignant reminder of the lives lost and the love that continued to bind them. Jake watched as parents held their children close, sharing stories of loss, resilience, and the importance of cherishing every moment. As the last of the notes were pinned to the memorial, a soft breeze rustled through the trees. It was as if the spirits were whispering their thanks, their presence felt in the gentle movement of leaves and the laughter of the children playing nearby. Feeling a surge of joy, Jake turned to his friends. "We did it. We really did it." Emily smiled back, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "They're finally remembered." Just then, a group of children from the gathering, inspired by the event, began to play nearby, their laughter ringing out like music. Jake couldn't help but smile at their joy, realizing that the legacy of the ghost children would live on through the stories shared and the connections forged that day. As twilight deepened, the group gathered around the memorial one last time. Together, they held hands, forming a circle of solidarity. Jake spoke softly, "Let's take a moment to honor them, to feel their presence, and to promise that we'll keep their memory alive." Closing their eyes, they breathed in the cool evening air, feeling the weight of the past settle around them. For a few moments, time seemed to stand still, and they could almost hear the faint laughter of the ghost children mingling with the sounds of the present. Finally, as they opened their eyes, Jake felt a sense of peace. The children were free now, their story told, and their spirits acknowledged. They had woven the past into the fabric of the present, ensuring that the memories of those lost would resonate for generations to come. As the event wound down and families began to depart, Jake and his friends lingered for a while longer. They watched as the stars began to twinkle above, the night sky a vast canvas dotted with lights. "This is just the beginning," Emily said, her voice filled with determination. "We can keep sharing their story, reaching out to others." Jake nodded, feeling a newfound sense of purpose. "Let's create a website, maybe even a community group. We can continue to honor them and educate others about safety." With that, the seeds of a new mission were planted. They stood together, united by their shared experience and the promise they had made to remember the ghost children. As they walked away from the park, laughter and stories echoing behind them, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that their journey had only just begun. In the months that followed, the group worked tirelessly. They created a beautiful website filled with stories, safety tips, and ways to honor those lost. They organized community events, ensuring that every year, the memory of the ghost children would be celebrated and shared. And as they did, the spirits of those children lingered on in their hearts, guiding them and reminding them of the power of connection and remembrance. The laughter of children became a symbol of hope, weaving through the lives of the living, reminding everyone that even in loss, there is always the promise of new beginnings. The story of San Antonio's ghost children would never be forgotten, and their legacy would shine brightly, illuminating the path for those who came after. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.